That is why there is administrative action. That is not
So,
administrative. That
yes.
that is legal action.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is not administrative action.
So, Governor, we are saying you must have taken some administrative action, like a warning letter, training, you know. It could be training of the officers if you feel they're inept. You must have taken some action, not show cause, some action. And we're asking, what action did you take to mitigate? Otherwise, when you're writing the report, the final report, then we might prescribe some of those things.
The officers have been warned, all of them. Those who did that, they have been warned.
Okay.
The show cause
Point
letter.
us to the letters. Okay, center.
The show cause letter is a warning in itself because it goes on file.
Chair, got some wisdom from our senior counsel here. You know, this thing about show cause letter. Now, once you write a show cause letter to a member of staff and they respond to it, should there be a decision based on that conversation? That I've given you a show cause letter, you have responded, and now this is your fate. Now we have forgiven you. I don't know. Does it just end with an exchange of letters? A show cause letter and...
Governor's show cause letter, an action in itself, or an intent of an action. That you explain yourself. If you're not satisfied, then there will be some action.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll allow the officers who...
EC.
Thank you, Chair. Apart from the show cause letters, Chair, the accountants and the people working with the financial statements, all of them have been taken to refresher courses with the Treasury and ISPAC. And even as we speak, Your Excellency, Chair, there's still another team which is in Mombasa.
You're sitting there. You're sitting there.
Yeah, who are still undergoing the training, because this issue partly was because of the late submission, which the accountants later on submitted the documents and the queries were justified. The only issue is that they were submitted late. And part of the late of submission was because of the issues of ending in the financial year, and the accountant have already committed that they will keep time and they will be able to submit the documents in the required time. So once you issue the show cause letter and we feel that that officer has responded satisfactorily, unless he repeats the same crime again, then now we can take an extra step of taking him to the disciplinary committee for further action.
Chair, one would be interested to know whether the ONG flagged up that issue when you are doing some audit. So if you did, why do we have to waste our time on small things? Why didn't you give those responses to the ONG? Then we shouldn't be doing some other things. ONG, did you flag up those issues during your interaction in the entity?
Thank you, Chair. When we are auditing, of course, we do start from the query. Somebody will query that this is not supported, and then we'll also write a management letter. We have a draft report, up to final report when it's being signed. So we ask for these documents.
That from the entity, we expect those things to have come up before you. We shouldn't be around those small issues.
So I think, members, we can look at the documents, the show cause letter, the responses, when we are writing our reports, and make a decision, so that don't belabor on this issue so much and look at other issues. Is that agreed? Senator Umogen.
See, the problem I have is that there is no follow-up action from management. You write a show cause letter, there is a response, then there should be a decision made, and then a communication is made to the officer. Either to tell the officer, we received your response, we have seen you didn't comply with the law, so we are warning you not to repeat the same mistake again. But you can't get a response and then you leave it hanging.
So drinking from the wisdom of the senior counsel, there must have been some communication, and then Also, the action by the CC is okay about the training, but then there's something lacking there. That after the officer has responded, then there's need for another correspondence to the officer.
Noted, Chair.
So you will do something within 7 days and give the auditor that particular communication
Write
to
it
the
in your
officer
notebook.
in 7 days with a copy to the secretariat. Because when you're doing the reports, we'd have both of them. So directed. Auditor want to look at paragraph 3, lack of aging analysis for staff payables, and tie it to 2.0, that is on emphasis of matter, long outstanding pending bills. You can look at the two concurrently. You can start with the first one on lack of aging analysis. Do you have it now? What is still remaining? Just, I'm looking at what you've written here. Just tell us what is still outstanding.
Thank you, Chair. Based on the recommendation of the committee, of course, they were being able to provide a report, and that one we said it already implemented. They were able to provide a pending committee report. But there's an issue of where they were supposed to come up with a payment plan and submit it to control of budget, but we were not given such a plan, so that issue remains, the recommendation remains unaddressed. Then there's also an issue of they were right to control our budget, and that write-up was not provided for audit. So we say the issue of that recommendations remain unaddressed. They were also supposed to give us a list of existing projects and evidence of adequate budgetary provision, and that was not also provided. And lastly, Chair, was conduct public participation. Management shall ensure strict adherence to this rule. And this one also we were not.
I didn't get the last one.
There was an element of the fifth recommendation was county governments shall conduct public participation, and then management shall ensure strict adherence to this, and they were to provide evidence of public participation, but we were not given any.
Governor, you looked at the recommendations. What do you have to say?
Chair, I think the problem on this one is the same as the one for the previous one, that we did not submit the documents after we were here in Senate. But the documents are attached in this report. So the question of the pending bills, the provision of a payment plan, that is with the control of budget. And we've been paying every year since 2018.
What do you mean, Governor, it is with the control of budget? You're supposed to provide a payment plan.
To the control of budget.
Have you provided the payment plan?
To the control of budget, yes.
Yes. Auditor, did you want a copy of the payment plan to prove that action has been taken?
Chairman, that's what I'm saying. The issue is not, this problem of the auditor not having the documents will recur in every question, because there's no document we've given the auditor since the time we were here. We thought that we respond and bring them to Senate. So the question he's responding to as not being given does not mean the document is not there. It's just that we did not know we're supposed to have given them before coming here for this review. Okay?
So
I think I'm communicating.
Yeah, I'm getting you. That so then now I would ask auditor, what type of engagement did you have with the executive? Because they required documents. You review the documents before our meeting today. If you had actually engaged, you must have asked for the payment plan. Now the governor is saying, we don't know if we are required to give the documents to the auditor. If we invited and engaged the governor, why is the governor saying that they have not given the documents to you, Senator Spooner?
But Chair, I'm wondering, does this committee have the power to close audit queries? The person who raised the audit query is the Auditor General, so that when you are supplying documents in response to even the conversations here in the Senate, if you send it to the Auditor General, to the control of budget, for instance, make sure that you send it to the Auditor General as well, so that when we sit here The Auditor General is the one we pose those questions to. We are like, have you seen it? So it is supposed to be straightforward, Governor, that the person who, the originator of the query, must be the one you satisfy. The rest of us are just downstream. Once they tell us that they are happy, the query is closed. Secondly, there is ongoing audits. I was doing my exit meetings last week before I went to the Jamboree in Mombasa with the Auditor General for the ODM party. If there are prior year matters that are raised during that particular conversation for this current financial year, they are the ones to satisfy. They're the ones to address those responses to, Governor. So really, if you send it to the control of budget, yet the originator of the question has not had sight of it, it will keep recurring.
I think then there's a miscommunication. We are responding here to a Senate follow-up matrix on the ACT decisions made at Senate.
Yes.
We are not responding to the auditor because this question came from Senate. So what we did, we prepared for Senate.
I think the
The other
confusion is on
times,
your
what
end.
happens-
Just let the governor.
The other times
land
when
first.
we are going through normal audit, the auditors come to the county and audit, and we do management responses to the auditor. But this letter did not come from the auditor. I think the confusion comes from there because it's the first time we're doing follow-up of our
Yeah,
a
it's the first
Senate
time.
hearing.
It's the first time. Yeah.
It's the first time. So we didn't know that we're supposed to do whatever the Senate provides us. We're supposed to go back to the auditor and then come back to the Senate. We assumed we prepare for Senate and come to the Senate. So that is where the miscommunication is, because then there should have it should have been a bit clear that we clear with the Auditor General and then come back. We thought we were coming to report to the Senate.
Senator Spooner, then Senator Wambua.
Chair, there's only one way, Governor, an audit query is closed, and that is by the Auditor General, the originator of the query. We are not originators of the queries. In fact, the ones we make here are recommendations, you know? So if you have not provided documents, because they are the ones to do the verification. For instance, if you are required to present payment vouchers to support a certain expenditure, if you bring those documents to me, there is nothing I'm going to do with those documents because I don't have the capacity to do the verification. So those documents should go to the Auditor General, and then you say, when they are here, that is why sometimes, Chair, we have adjourned meetings of this committee where responses have been sent to us and not to the Auditor General, because they are the originators of the query. So it is not too difficult for me, the way that I see it. You, for instance, a recommendation has been made that you do a payment plan. It is a recommendation that has come from the Senate. You send that payment plan to the OAG. That is, you'll demonstrate you have complied. In fact, all you need to do to the Senate is to send not the payment plan itself, but a confirmation, like a letter, cover letter to the control of budget saying, fine here with the payment plan as directed by the Senate. For us, that will be enough. Then we'll ask the control of budget, have you seen this? They say yes. Same to the Auditor General. Say some vouchers were not presented. We have now had sight of those vouchers and we have reconciled the amounts, because we will never do reconciliation in this committee. That is a fact. So those documents have to go to the originator of the query.
Senator Wambua.
Chair, just the same issue. The governor is busy with the CEC. They are consulting on something. Okay, Governor, now lend me your ears. Now, Chair, two things. One, the governor has admitted that they have not submitted documentation to OAG in relation to the recommendations by the Senate. And for me, that perhaps is where this engagement ends, you know, because you see, our recommendations are based on the queries, and the office that has raised the queries is the OAG. It is for them to make the final determination whether that query has been dealt with sufficiently. In the absence of that, then what we are doing here, we will be attempting to carry out an audit here. It's not possible. It's not practical. If the OAG has not seen the responses, then I'm actually wondering what are we engaging on? Because when you ask the OAG whether they have received payment vouchers or supporting documents, and those documents are not available, what are they going to be responding to?
Chair,
Yes,
Chair, may
Governor.
say something? If maybe I would give an example, like for the areas, let's say, for example, documents were submitted late. The documents were submitted to the Auditor General, and that query was actually accepted as closed. Only the Senate made a recommendation that the officers who submitted the documents late, that should be action taken. Yeah?
No,
No.
that is not the position.
No, that is the position of the previous.
No, the position is, we'll look at the queries, you'll answer to them when we write to you, isn't it? And then we'll do a report so that we go and implement. Now we're looking at the status of the implementation of the recommendations. If you have implemented the recommendation, it is us to close those queries. How do you close them? We close them by satisfying the auditors that you've answered the queries properly in this meeting. Then now we say this one is addressed. It cannot be addressed merely by saying, go and undertake administrative action. You can't close it at your point. You have to give the documents. The auditor must have adequate time to look at the documents that we recommended you give them. Then we do an engagement and we satisfy ourselves that it is true, you have implemented the recommendations, and so that audit query is closed. We'll close it here.
Chair, I think there is a small miscommunication between me and you on this matter. Let me give an example of the previous issue on taking administrative action, where the recommendation by the Senate is to take administrative action. Because by the time we came, we had already submitted the documents to the auditor and the auditor had accepted the issue is cleared. However, Senate felt that because some of those documents were provided late and arose as an audit query, even if the auditor agreed with us, administrative action should be taken on the officer. So the response to this committee now, the follow-up action, is on the administrative action, not on the submission of the documents. I don't know whether I'm overcomplicating, but that issue had actually been closed during the audit.
Murik, you want to say something?
Chairman, I wanted to say that even where documents have not been submitted to the auditor late, sometimes they are brought to the office of the Auditor General. The auditor will not have time to conduct additional tests because they're already back in the office, they're not in the field. So submitting late the documents is not going to help. Thank you, Chairman. Does not resolve the issue.
So then that means that we are not able to close these issues from your answer or from your observation.
I wanted to say that even if you bring a document late to the auditor will not have time to conduct additional tests. And that's the reason why he wasn't asking for the documents in the first place. And that's why the committee now was recommending that administrative action be taken on the officer who failed to provide the documents in time, therefore denying the auditor an opportunity to conduct tests.
So according to the governor, when you do undertake the administrative action, according to her, that issue is closed.
Chairman, it will not be closed.
It will not be closed, yeah.
Chair, I think let's, for clarity, let me ask, right? When the recommendation that is being requested, right, is because the issue was resolved during the hearing of Senate, but the Senate said the office of the county governor undertakes administrative action against the responsible officer who failed to provide the documents to the auditors at the time of the audit in accordance with this Act etc. That is the recommendation we've been given. The recommendation here is not on documents because the issue of documents was closed during the hearing. That's why I'm saying we're going back to reopen an audit hearing that has already happened. The only issue, despite that issue having been closed, Senate felt that we should take action on the officer who submitted documents late, who caused there to be a query when there shouldn't have been a query in the first place.
Yes.
Okay? So the recommendation here is not on documents because the documents matter was closed.
Now-
The recommendation was on administrative action. So we are reporting on the administrative action. Now we have understood. You have advised us that the administrative action that was taken, we should have taken it back to the auditor also, and then now come back to the Senate. If I understand correctly.
When you're required, for example, to provide documents like a payment plan or payment schedule to the control of budget, we must also be satisfied that that payment plan has followed the template, the format that is required. The auditor must be satisfied that that template was followed. And then for us, we are the ones to resolve. These issues are not resolved by that first report, which requests for implementation of some recommendations. It is never resolved there. It is resolved by Parliament. It is resolved here by this committee. So if we do recommendations to the entity, you will implement the recommendations. We will come back here and find out whether the issues as raised and our recommendations that we made have satisfied the auditors and us as the committee to write off an audit query, to clear or to mark a query as resolved. In fact, what I'm asking the auditor is if the issues were addressed. I'm using the word addressed. If they were addressed, then this committee will decide whether the query has been resolved. Those are two different words. Have you addressed the issues? If they are addressed, then as a committee, when you're writing our report, we would say the query has been resolved and we mark it as resolved. It will not reappear again. Yes, Auditor?
Thank you, Chair. You have well stated. What I wanted to bring to attention to the committee is when we are doing the audit currently, of course, we used to do up to report, but based on the recommendation of the committee, we do what we call follow-up. So the audit phases are now 4. We have the issue of planning, we have the execution, then the reporting aspect, which comes to you, and then we make now the follow-up of recommendations. So when we are doing the exit, I know in Muranga we issued what we are calling it circularization of audit committee, SPAC recommendations, where we well put the aspect of what is your take in terms of responses by the client. All the issues which were raised by the committee were on that circularization, which we issued at the exit meeting when we were doing this current audit. So what we were expecting, of course, after we have done that, we will do the audit verification by that team because they have the capacity at that level to be able to check all the issues which were raised in the prior year and be able to say these have been addressed, these have not been addressed. So when we received the letter, we were not given with the documents. We were given only this letter, which are a few pages without the other annexure. So, Chair, I think that is the confusion, and the governor said very well that maybe it is because of their first time getting recommendation direct from your.
Yeah, this is the first time, and even into the future, looking into the future, that is how we would be operating. In fact, by 31st December, all the reports should be in Parliament. Then we'll take 1st January up to 31st March. You'd have given us our response. Your responses would have engaged and would have written our report. Then after that, after 60 days, we start following up on the implementation of the recommendations. If you implement the recommendations, then the auditors would mark the issues as addressed. When we meet here the second time, then we'll be marking them resolved. So after that first, we will get all the certificates. All the audit reports will be in Parliament by 31st of December. When we get them, we'll begin engaging the counties up to 31st of March. These are the new timelines that have been given by the courts and we must adhere to the court rulings. There was a court ruling here in Nairobi about the alcoholic case. I can't remember the case number, but because of that ruling, that's why we're using a new system of operating. That by 31st, we'll get the reports up to by 31st December. Up to 31st March, we'll have engaged the counties, written our reports with recommendations, and then we'll write to the counties, giving them our report and the recommendations. The counties would now work on implementing the recommendations. Then we'll come back here and see how you have implemented them. Then you can mark the issues as resolved or not resolved. So if you're supposed to take administrative action on an officer, at this point we want to see if you have undertaken administrative action. If you have, and the auditor is satisfied, and we are satisfied, then we mark that issue as resolved. I don't know if you are following that, Governor.
We're clear, Chair.
You want to say something, Muriuki, before I go to the next issue?
Chairman, from the discussions we have had, it's coming out clearly that the auditor has not looked at this file. And this is evidence by the county that they have taken action on the recommendations made by the committee. What the auditor has seen is only the responses, the written response, but not the evidence. So the auditor has not put to test the evidence as required to be able to prepare and come before this committee. Thank you, Chairman. And then we may have to make a decision on how we proceed.
And that's why, as a preliminary, before even we call the entity, we ask the auditor, have you engaged with the executive? And they say, yes, we have engaged. To mean that after we do our recommendations, then the entity is implementing the recommendations, there must be some sort of engagement between the auditor and, in this case, the governor. That interaction is supposed to answer to the recommendations or implementation of the recommendations. And then we'll call you back here and look at the status of implementation of the recommendations. It is very clear, and Senator Wambua had already indicated that then if the documents we wanted, like the payment plan to the control of budget, the auditor has not looked at it, then this meeting likely might not, or continuing with it might not be tenable. Because then, if there's no new evidence of implementation of recommendations to the auditor, then how do we move? We'll just be doing the first engagement, and we had engaged Kirinyaga previously. We'll be doing that engagement again. There'll be nothing new that will come up in this meeting. And in fact, I understand your frustration. You're saying, we're just answering the questions that we had answered before. I get what now you are saying. You are supposed to have engaged the auditors after we wrote to you with our recommendations, so that you look at the recommendations and see the best way of answering to them by engaging the auditors. And then with that engagement, then it would lead to this meeting, so that you look at how you implemented our recommendations, and then for us as a committee, we would make a decision whether then the queries are addressed or not, and so we clear them. But as it is now, I'm then wondering how then we would clear, Muriuki, these queries, unless you are saying now then you rely on the upcoming audit.
Chairman, if you look at the brief done by the auditor, you realize that the auditor is only addressing the response by the client to the recommendations of the committee. But Chair, remember, previously this committee has ruled that in as much as the client is addressing the recommendations of the committee, they must also address the audit issues to satisfy the committee that the issue now does not recur again. So Chair, continuing the discussion then will prejudice the client, because the client then was not prepared and had not given the auditor the document. I believe, Chair, they may be given another opportunity, with your permission, Chair. Because
Governor,
those issues may not be addressed in the subsequent audit, as it were. Thank you, Chair.
Governor, what the auditor is saying is that if we recommended administrative action for not providing documents and giving explanations, if you administered that administrative action, still the query has not been addressed. And in fact, we'll be doing two things in this meeting. Number one, showing us and proving to us that administrative action for that any malfeasance was undertaken. But then number two, we must also be sure through engagement with the auditor that the audit query was addressed or not. So we'll be doing two things. Now, if you're just looking at the recommendations only of the committee, still the audit queries would subsist. They would not be cleared. Governor.
Thank you, Chair. Now, at the risk of going back, and I have understood and I understand that we cannot really meaningfully proceed until we go back and meet the Auditor General. I just want to clarify that during the previous audit, issues were cleared. So if you read the audit, the issues, if you look at the answer, but there were certain issues they said, even if the issue was cleared, take administrative action. So we cannot go back to that issue again because it was cleared if you go to the Hansard report. However, if an issue was not cleared, then that issue remains to be addressed as a recommendation substantively. So we cannot start again from the very beginning because some issues, most of the issues were cleared apart from very few. Having said that, I think I was trying to remember whether the auditor was here, this specific auditor, or it's a different one. I think because of institutional memory of what was and what was not, we will revert back to the auditors because they haven't actually finished this year's audit and they need to still do the exit meeting from what I'm informed, what the senior auditor is referring to, what they've done in another county. And once that is done, then we will resubmit the report to the Senate. I think that's the only meaningful way to
Let me say what I know. That you might not have provided the documents during the time of audit. But when we come here, we give you a second bite at the cherry. That, okay, you might not have provided the documents during the time of audit to answer to the audit report, something that really offends us. Because then you have management letter, exit report, you have not answered to the queries. So when we call you here, we invite you to try and answer to the queries that you did not answer during the time of audit. We have given you a second bite at the cherry. And if you are not able to answer during our first meeting, then we say in 7 days, in 1 month, in 2 months, please provide these documents to the auditor to see if then the auditor would be satisfied. But you have not done that. So it means that audit that was not cleared in the first engagement cannot be cleared if you have not provided the document subsequently to the auditor. It is just giving you a second bite at the cherry. And we are saying this, if it is true or it is lawful to provide the documents during the time of audit in accordance to Public Audit Act 62(2), and you didn't provide, and then we just adopted this report of the auditor without calling the entity, then ours is just to sit down and prescribe the recommendations to ESCC and to DCI to do investigations and then prescribe or recommend to the ODPP so that these people are taken to court. But then we give you a second bite at the cherry. And that's why you appear here and say, please, the documents that were not provided, provide them to the auditor. And then we get a second engagement to see.
Chair.
Just a minute, I'll give you the opportunity. I'll give you the opportunity, Governor. Just put off the mic, yes. So this second instance that you're supposed to give the documents to the auditor, you didn't provide them. And so then we might not continue with meaningful engagement. Governor. Yes, Governor.
Nothing, Chair. Thanks.
Yes, so it means it's clear. Yes, auditor?
Before the director speaks, because this document has not gone to the auditor, the permission chair, and because Senate has received their copy, maybe you can request the auditor to go back and look at this document again. Looking at the document that's face value chair is well referenced, and there is evidence there. Maybe the auditor can be given an opportunity 7 days to look at the information, then be allowed to come to do a brief and come back to the committee. That will help the client to be able now to appear before you properly. Thank you, Chairman.
Any member wants to input before I rule? Auditor, Director?
Chair, before the auditor comes in, Muriuki, what you're saying is okay, but you also know that we have issues with scheduling, you know? We have issues with scheduling. And there's an audit that is actually supposed to be completed by the 31st of December. And very soon after that, we get engaged with that, you know? So the prayer you're making is okay. I'm just wondering, how do you even do it? How do you, because that would mean that the county government of Kirinyaga will appear before us that time on the same audit report. I don't know.
Let me say this. In my previous life as a teacher, there's a theory by Professor Lev Vygotsky that indicates that whatever you get from books is information. Whatever you get from colleagues and every other person in a discussion is information. But whatever then remains in your mind is called knowledge. Now, we are new in this because previously we were doing it just once. That there is a query, we have our prosecutor, the auditors, then there's the governor, and we do our report. Now it's different. We must engage first. We look at the certificate by the auditor, and then we do some recommendations for implementation. Then we try to see if those recommendations have been implemented. This is the way to go now and in the future. We are negotiating this. We are negotiating this because knowledge is negotiated. It's not a preserve of anybody. And that's why people say that the law is clear, but the law has never been clear. If it was clear, then you cannot have a ruling at the lower court and the appellate court, that ruling is overturned. Why? Because there is nothing as unclear as the law. So this is where we are, Governor, that when we engage in the first instance, these audit queries are not cleared. They're never cleared. They will be cleared when the auditor is satisfied that our recommendations have been implemented and the necessary questions that were still obtaining or remaining unanswered have been answered. Then we do our report and say these issues now have been resolved. But as it is now, the issues that were not resolved in the first instance have not been resolved. Now, as a way forward, Senator Wambua, because I'm seeing we don't have time, these issues that are not resolved, that are not marked as addressed by the auditor, and we have them in this brief, we can just let them stay so that they appear as substantive issues in the upcoming report, which would give us by 31st of December as a statutory timeline, and then we look at them in the subsequent report. And they should appear because we've ruled here before as issues, not just indicating prior year matters. Let them be as paragraphs, because then they have not been resolved. And you look at them at that point. But when you are doing our report, I know that some will be able to resolve. However, as Muriuki is saying, if you are able to engage the auditor, because we will be with the auditor when we are writing our final report, if you're able to engage the auditor before we write our report, then some of them would be resolved at that level when we are doing our reports.
Thank you, Chair. I
Yes,
think
yes,
you have
Auditor.
guided well, because as we speak now as an office, we have decided when we are bring the report, the current report now, we'll itemize the issues not resolved by the committee and the Senate. So it's already taken care, and all our reports will be highlighting the issues which were not resolved, so that we don't. And that is a direction from the office as a policy, so the issues will not get. And that is why, Chair, as we speak, maybe the second level is, you saw when I was giving my briefs on your recommendation, there were almost 38 recommendations, and only 8 had been addressed. So you can be able to see, because what we were given in the office, actually what I got is, they were not reference to the documents. They were just a provision, and I gave that the auditor who was in charge, and he looked at them. So he had not seen the evidence. And I think maybe probably because of your main was to send to the Senate. That is why the whole confusion came about. Otherwise, the documents were supposed to be provided for audit for us to be able to verify. And the team was ready to verify the documents. Thank you.
Thank you for that input. I think it would give us a way forward. Members, I think it's not tenable to go on with this meeting. Ordinarily, we would have closing remarks. We can donate our time to who? Senator Spooner, want to say something? Okay. Senator Mugen, Senior Counsel? Nothing. Governor, you want to put something as a closing remark?
Thank you, Chair. We will send the documents to and engage the Auditor General. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, our meeting will be adjourned shortly after we leave the governor to leave, and then we'll do some A or B that was given by the Secretariat so that we finish up our meeting. Governor, you now may leave with your team. The rest of the members and the auditors also, the AOB might not concern you, so that we do something a bit in-house. Then we conclude our meeting. Thank you, Governor, for coming. It's always good to see you here. And I must commend you that anytime you are required by the Senate, you've been coming. So just keep it up, and they would engage between January and March.
Can I see of the governor?
What do you want to see of the governor?
She's my neighbor.
Now you can't request in the middle of a meeting.
No, she's my neighbor.
You can't ask that one in
I
the
want to
middle of
see
an
of the governor.
accountability meeting.
She's my neighbor. I have
In
no...
the middle of an accountability meeting, you can't ask that. Just go. Yeah. Yes. You don't need to ask for permission to see off the governor, but for us, we don't. Yeah. Thank you so much, Governor. Just the members remain a bit.